Apex Online Racing is sponsored by Elgato, who created this lovely Stream Deck. For more information about the Stream Deck, the link is in the description below.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers and sisters. This is the AOR Hype Energy F1 2018 Season 16 Round 19 here at the Autódromo Ricardo Rodríguez in Mexico. My name is King-Kodiak and I'll be one of your commentators throughout this evening's race. Joining me in the commentary box, always happy to say, is my faithful companion, Mr. Hamish-Sopwith.
Yes, good evening everyone. This is going to be quite an exciting race. It's one of our highest races in terms of altitude, what means we see some of the highest top speeds, Monza levels of top speeds, although Monaco levels of downforce. There's plenty of opportunity for overtaking, and it's a championship decider. It wasn't decided last week in wherever we were, which was America, in Kota, but it may very well be decided here. So we wait in anticipation as always.
Oh yes, exactly that. Our man, our championship leader, who has been at the top of the table for vast majority of the season, David Zanita, has just got to finish in 7th. It doesn't matter what Danny does at that point. Only Formula Danny and David Zanita are in with a shot of sealing the championship this very evening. It has to, Danny has to win. He has got no other choice. If he finishes second, he's dropped too many points, and the championship is over. If he wins and David Zanita is 7th or higher, it doesn't matter what happens thereafter. The championship is done. If, however, of course, Danny wins and Tanisa either is thrown into the wall or something happens that he doesn't score, then the championship rolls on another week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did see Tanisa having a pretty poor start to Kota last weekend. In fact, he was down P10 or 11 at one point, but he really managed to claw his way back up the grid. He got a solid result overall, solid enough. He finished P4, just outside the podium. He was very close to getting a podium with the penalties, but he wasn't quite there. So it'll be interesting. But if he finishes in that P4 again, as you say, Kodiak, he's going to be the championship winner. He will be added to the list of PC champions. And there's some pretty high-profile names: Torano Tigger, Marco FD, Alex Gillen, among the names of previous championship winners. So, he puts himself into a pretty prestigious category.
Very much so. Also, bearing in mind that Tanitsa, as far as I'm aware, has jumped straight into this tier. This is his maiden league with AOR. Yes. I don't recognise the name from the lower tiers. So he's just jumped straight into T1 and is on the verge of taking the championship. That cannot be understated. Also, bearing in mind that Formula Danny, through various commitments, has missed a number of the races, and he's still, with 3 rounds to go, in with a shot. It's a long shot, I grant you, but he's still there. He's still in with an opportunity to take that title. So there's been some amazing performances throughout our field, and I have no doubt that we are in for another evening of brilliant racing here in Mexico. Now, the PS4 guys, in the race that preceded this one, did a 12-0 as their pole time. Now, we have seen some pretty impressive times come from our PC runners, so we will see then who is going to come out on top, as Formula Danny has come out on track. Most people are out on track. The only people that aren't are... Oh, go on.
So, Donoso starting his hot lap. Just to give you an idea of the speeds these guys are reaching, it's about 215 miles an hour, but they are running virtually maxed out on the wings. They'll probably be running 8+ on the aero package on their cars, front and rear. and it's to do with the altitude. It's so high up this track. It's something. I think it's something like 3,000 feet up in the air, which is absolutely nuts. I mean, that's the sort of, you're not too far off ski resort level. So which is why they're running the high aero. And they're still achieving very high speed. So anyway, Donoso's on a flying lap. It's looking pretty good, I must admit. He's hitting all the apexes, and he's seeming to be getting all the braking zones pretty just right. He's coming into the stadium section, which is the most dramatic change of this relatively new track. Obviously, it used to be raced on back in the 60s through to the 80s, and then it got disregarded. It's through the Peltada, although going quite slowly. Tim with a 1:12.3. Donoso only 47 thousandths off that time, but it looked like he slowed down quite dramatically. I'm not sure if you're following him at the time, Kodiak, but he seemed to pull over to the right.
Well, again, these are pretty much going to be the banker laps with at this stage in the qualifying, although that's still a pretty damn quick banker lap from Tino there with a 12.3. And as you say, Hamish, Fabricio only 47,000 behind. So I'm not really expecting real killer times. But what I'm curious about is the tyre strategy. Oh, there's our championship leader clocking in at 17 thousandths quicker than Tino with a 12, also with a 12.3. Now, the Ultrasoft seem to be a bit of an oddity where they're giving almost the same level of grip to the Hypersofts, but considerably longer duration. Now that might sound like a really obvious statement. Yes, it's a harder tyre, therefore that's the exact formula you're going to follow. But the proportions seem to be a bit skewed. Usually if you go one step harder, there's a general element of you lose X amount of performance, but you gain X amount of duration. That formula doesn't seem to be quite in place, or from what I have seen in oh wow, we've got 4 people within a tenth of David Tanisa's time at the moment. As Jan Fehler's clocked in a lap at 1:12.397. But yeah, the duration of the tyres is improved. Obviously with it being a harder tyre going from ultras to hypers. But the lack of the loss of grip doesn't seem to be as much as you might expect. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see a fair amount of Ultrasoft running later on. However, these guys know what the weather is going to be. And on that note, I have been informed to expect rain by the end of the race. Now, again, another league race I saw earlier in the week had rain appear around about 2 laps from the end, so it didn't make an awful lot of difference. You had people skating around on exceedingly used super soft tyres by that point, but he always is going to throw the cat amongst the pigeons. So let us see what is going to happen. If people are going to qualify in the Hypersoft tyres, they're almost certainly going to be in a 2-stop strategy. However, it's going to be down to a lot of people, maybe using up the Hypers or, throwing on sort of Super Softs early and just looking to the skies and hoping that the rain falls earlier than others might think. Knowing there's rain in the air for the race is, it's going to throw a lot of gambles into the driver mixture.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one thing as a driver I've always found, when you go out and there's meant to be rain coming at some point. Now, obviously, the generation of games I was racing on, which was F1 2013 sort of era, the weather system wasn't quite as accurate. It just gave you a percentage and you didn't know if it was coming at the beginning, middle or end of the race. They have more information these days. However, one thing you don't want it to let it do is kind of to scupper up your strategy. You've been preparing all week for a certain strategy. You don't want to go completely the way and start making crucial setup changes and maybe qualifying strategy, what you're talking about, Kodiak, because the rain may or may not come. I always found it's best to stick to your strategy and deal with it as and when you need to, unless it's so blatantly obvious it's coming at the beginning or mid-stage of the race. I would tend to, try and keep to your strategy, because that's the safest thing to do. Because you could do 5 laps in the wet and you'll probably be about okay. I say wet as in starting from drizzle to the needing to go on to intermediates. and you'll probably be okay with not coming in. Anything more than that, then you really do need to get yourself into a pits to change tyres. So it'll be interesting to see if anyone does decide to qualify on hardest compound tyre.
We will see. We will see. Interesting that the Supersoft runners have put a few laps on their tyres and still going. And Marek put 3 laps on his tyre. Amos, who returns to us this week, is on his 4th time lap. Is on a 14.9.
Interesting that they're both Hasses.
Yes, the Haas is going for the harder tyre. And Formula Danny's come out of the Supersoft as well. And the Supersoft is the hardest compound available to our drivers, Hyper, Ultra and Supersoft, for this race. So that's interesting from Danny. He's going for the longer game, I would think. Or he's just using the Supersofts, to do his Cyter lap and just bung on the Hypersofts to throw in that killer lap. But interestingly, Tim came out on the Hypers and has gone back in again. Unusual.
Quite strange. You normally want to preserve those tyres, though it's not a tyre you'll be particularly using again in the race, so you can use them all up in the qualifying session. I mean, a lot of the drivers have, Danny is now on an official time lap, and he's going very slowly. I mean, he's going to be 5-6 seconds off where he needs to be. He might just be getting a feel for the track. Like you said earlier, a 1 minute 12 is a sort of lap time they'd be looking at. From getting out the pits, it's probably about 1 minute 18. So it's not like a long lap. It's not like Spa where you need to give yourself like 2 minute 15 seconds to get round. You've only got about 1 minute and 20, and it means you can leave things quite late. If you have a confidence in your ability and how the car's set up, then usually it's okay. But interestingly, Kodiak, if you look at Danny's car, especially as he turns on some of these tighter corners, you can see the understeer is so dramatic, especially turning right. I'm not sure if he's lost any front wing or not, but his car just seems to understeer like mad. I mean, he turns the wheel and the car isn't responding how I would expect to see it. It's sort of sliding across. So I'm not sure if he needs to make any adjustments. Obviously, he's now in parc ferme, but he can change the front wing, which will have a major impact on the handling of the car, of course.
Could be that he wasn't pushing it particularly hard, but I wouldn't be at all surprised if that was tyre temp related. Again, looking at previous rounds I've seen this week, the Supersoft do take a while to get back up to temperature. New pole time by Tanita at 1:12.154. So again, he's really getting the benchmark out there. Timp has come out again on Hypersoft tyres along with Jan Fehler. Donoso is out on Ultrasofts, so again, he's looking to do something a bit different. Or he's doing what Danny's has done. He's strapped the tyres on, had a Cyter lap. Although, if that was a Cyter lap from Danny on Supersoft tyres, a 13.4, that's not bad. Especially with only one lap on them, not giving them any time to really get up to temperature. 5,000s behind him is Veloci Photon. So that's, again, on the Supersoft tyres. So a decent effort from him. So, yeah, as I thought, we're seeing quite a few different ideas on strategy. Daniele Haddad's not got a time on the board. Actually, quite a few of our drivers don't as yet. Still over 7 minutes to go. And that was a big old snap of oversteer coming through the double right-hander there down at turn 6. Oh, I haven't got my map handy. Try that again. So, yeah, that was a big moment for Haddad. But the oversteer is a little bit exaggerated from the spectator side, so it may look dramatic, and I'll still respond to it, knowing that it's that it's exaggerated. I can't help it. That's the commentator's instinct to go, oh no, that's not happening at all.
Yes, it's a shame when we see like a big crash and it turns out just to be lag or something.
Yeah.
And we get really excited. Oh no, it's fine. They're exactly where they were. Haddad coming into the pit, so he hasn't set a lap. Although he, like you said, he was on the Ultrasoft. Donoso is on Ultrasofts, going actually looking pretty quick at the moment. He's missed the second apex of which I believe was turn 6. Now coming through this sort of high-speed Maggots Beckett style section all the way, carries all the way to turn 10. You've got to be perfect, very easy to cut or extend and get yourself an unnecessary penalty. Then turn 10, 11 and 12, well 11 isn't really a turn, into the stadium section of 13, 14 and 15, going under the bridge up towards which was the old Peraltada, which used to be like a kind of a parabolica parabolica style corner, but now it's just a sort of a half parabolica, I suppose you call it, and he's straight into the pits with Tunitsa extending his advantage, Kodiak, by, well, pretty much 2 tenths, considering there's nothing between Williams Timp and Tunitsa. So there we go.
Garrix has put a lap on the board, put a time on the board on the Supersoft tyres, 1:13.6. Though not too bad from the second Mercedes, but he's done a few laps on these. He's got no fuel left, so he's not going to be improving this time, but he's decided to get a few laps on those Supersofts, and that's what I've seen previously. So that is not a great surprise. Who else is out there? James is out there in the Toro Rosso. What's he on the board? 1:12.7. I think he did that on the Hypers, didn't he? Yes, he did. If he did that on the Supers, that would be pretty impressive. But he's got no fuel left in the tank, so he's bringing that one back in. Most people are coming back into the pits. A non-runner is out there on a set of Hypersoft, but he's already put a lap on them, which would seem to be invalid because he's got no time. But he's pressing on, though. And that's turns 4 and 5 he's now coming into. Now the double right-hander of turn 6. Not a double right-hander. It's only classed as one turn, but there's 2 apexes in it. Railgon's coming out.
Is coming out on the super soft compound tyres, so it'll be interesting to see what he can do. I mean, Haddad is a very quick driver. You know, Renault obviously won the Constructors' Championship. He has got him. In fact, he won the first round in Australia. He's had a scattering of podiums, about 5 or 6 off the top of my head. So he has been pretty consistent, and he's been consistently quick throughout the whole season. Presumably the Supersoft strategy isn't completely bonkers, but it is the hardest compound tyre, as you said, Kodiak. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs.
Indeed. I wouldn't be at all surprised if a lot of people, like I said earlier, are going to kind of bank on the rain arriving sooner than later. The Noto's out again. He's been shoved down to 4th at 12.4. Again, he's on the Hypersoft tyres. So what we'll do is when he gets to start his lap, we'll follow him through and do a hot lap. So we're now less than 3.5 minutes to the end of the session. So there's not a lot of time for our drivers to get their Banzai lap in. And 5 of our drivers still yet to get a time on the board. Wycon's, Pationator, Non-Runner, Railgon and Haddad being in their number. So now is going to be the time that we see most people coming out and getting on with the job. Here comes Donoso then around the final turn 17. These deployments going to be up as far as it'll go. DRS open and away. Oh, that's one of the Ferraris. There'll be Photon then staying out of the way. Long straight down to turn 1. A heavy braking zone coming into the first chicane area. A little bit of a lock-up on that inside wheel, but nothing too bad. Over the apex of 2 and 3, taking as much track as he is allowed to do. Now the next straight, heading to the next twisty section, and he's already backed out of it. I bet he did look like he took a lot of curb on the exit of 2 and 3. I think he invalidated the lap, so he's going to slow down, recharge the battery, and try again next time around. But he has put some wear on those Hypersofts, and they don't last long. So we'll see how that goes as Marek gets a 1:12.929 on the Ultras on the board.
Wow. He's unfortunately Donoso wasn't able to make it stick. Tunitsa is just coming out of the pits at the moment. Have the likes of Formula Danny, who is actually coming down the back straight, although got a bit of traffic, so this will be a bit inconvenient because this will be his race tyre. Remember, if you're in the top 10, the tyres you're qualifying on is the tyres you have to start the race on. However, the Toro Rosso, whoever that was, did clear Formula Danny. He's still going pretty quickly into turn 4 and then 5. You've got to get these all these corners lined up and nailed pretty much perfect, because it affects you through the entire sort of second sector of the track if you don't get it right. So pretty much the end of sector 1 to the end of sector 2 is all joined up in some way. You haven't got really any breather. The only time you have a chance to correct a mistake is between turn 11 and 12. You could go through turn 11 up towards turn 12 into the stadium section, hitting the apex nicely, not going too wide, very important, easy to get yourself a penalty. It seems slow, this piece, but it isn't. Getting on the power very early through the Peraltada. Again, power as early as he could possibly dares. Taking a right-hand side, shortest route to the line. Not massively quick, Kodiak. It's a 12.7. That's a whole half second off to Neats. And that's the best he's got. He's slowed down. Formula doesn't finish any higher than 6.
Yeah, but he's playing the strategy because those hypersofts die really quick. I mean, laps 6 to 8 or so as Railgun has decided to call it a day. 113.536 for him. He will start no higher than 9th. Donoso's got it a day with that 12.404 he did earlier. Yeah, he's not wanting to qualify on those hypers, and again, I'm not entirely surprised. They die off so quickly and force you into a 2-stop strategy. Danny's playing the safer game. He's not relying on the rain arriving, much into the race. He thinks that as he jumps out of the way of Garrix, his teammate, we're starting to see some final times coming on the board. Yeah, I think Danny's just playing the safer game there. He's not wanting to rely on the rain arriving. As Tanita, though, is charging on. He's on another set of hypersofts coming into the stadium now. Can he beat 12.154 through 13 into 14? 15 is a fairly non-existent one, which is that tiny apex. Then into 16, and then around the final turn of 17, straight lining to the right-hand side. Does he improve? He did, but it was invalid. 112.
Failures doing very well in the McLaren. I must admit, Kodiak, he's in P3 already. That's got to be one of his highest starting positions.
Yeah, Jan is on a great charge then. Oh, that's a bit wide coming through 12.
Locked up as well. Misses the apex, and he's backed out of that.
Yeah,
that's such a shame. It's a little bit like Catalunya. You have the last few corners, and especially that chicane, it's so easy to mess it up. And you've nailed the lap, and then you get to that one point, you make a slight mistake, and it pretty much destroys everything you were able to do. But that's pretty much our qualifying grid with Tanitsa able to lock out, to get the pole position with a 12.154. Which is a little bit slower than we saw this morning, although it's still a very quick time. So good job from Tanitsa. A couple of attempts, so quite a big gap to be honest, Kodiak. However, top 10 are still roundabout within a second.
We're not used to that.
We're not used to this 2-temp gap, although if we look from second down to 4th, you can barely put a finger nail between the drivers because
that's what we're used to.
That is what we're used to. But it's a very good qualifying from the championship leader, just what he needed. So as soon as the results load, we will run down the qualifying order, ready for the race in just a moment's time. Tanitsa with the pole time in the Renault. They've already won the constructors, so good job from him. Tim in P2, Jan Failer in P3, he's going to be very pleased with that. Denoso in P4, good starting position. If you can avoid penalties here, do very well. Veloci James doing very well as well in P5. P6, Formula Danny, I can't help but feel he'd be disappointed, although the fastest of the ultra-soft runners. Frey Schneider in P7, Photon in P8, Marek in P9, Gerrits in P10. He's not going to be able to help his teammate too much. Railgon in P11, Haddad in P12. He's not going to be helping his teammate either too much. Amos in P13, and Wycombs in P14, and Non-Runner in P15. Not entirely sure why those two decided not to set times. Both in Red Bulls. Maybe it's a joint a team decision. I'm not sure, but they're going to have a lot of fun and will be starting on fresh tires.
They will indeed. So whilst we wait for the transition into the race, we're going to have a quick video from the sponsors. And there it was. And we're still waiting for our drivers to load in, unfortunately. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes, issues happen that slow down our drivers loading in. Well, we know that rain is coming. What we don't know is when. So that is going to be the golden question. When is this rain going to arrive? Let's see what tyres our guys have gone for. Of course, the top 10, we know what they're on. So, interesting. An exact 3x3x3 split, or 5x5x5. You know, a third of the field on hypers, the next third on ultras, and the final third on super softs. So that's more what I would expect. Ironically, in the race I saw earlier in the week was not that predictable at all. The tail guys trying some different strategies, but yeah, I'm not surprised to see the back five on the super soft tyres. Don't discount them, because again, that could really prove to be quite fortuitous. Formula Danny, as we mentioned, the fastest of the ultra soft runners, they did seem to do pretty well. Speaking of strategies, let's get, if I can do the right button, there it is. This is what we believe the pit stop strategy to be. So around 11 to 14 if you're starting on the ultra softs, which of course positions 6 to 10 are, and then 21 for the super soft runners. It's going to be around about 6 to 8 for the hyper soft starters to get rid of those. So that is what we can expect from our field. But those hypers die off really, even before you get to kind of lap 6, they struggle something awful. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens today.
Yeah, although one thing with a race restart, the top 10 technically haven't used their tyres in qualifying, so very much, we might see a bigger gap from the top 10 than we would do normally, because the drivers will have to, one rule is that they have to use the same tyre as they qualified on. They aren't allowed to change, although in theory they can, they're not allowed to change tyres just because of a race restart or anything.
Here we go then. 5 lights on, wind them up, and let them go. And Hamish has rejoined. That's an interesting start. Oh, what a cracking start from Jan Fehler to get alongside Tim, dragging on down to the first corner. Tanit's gone very, very defensive. Oh my goodness, are we looking at 4 wides coming into turn 1? Jan Fehler on the outside of the Williams, and that's James on the outside of Donoso as well. Oh, great move from Jan Fehler to come up into second position. Tanitza hangs on to the lead. Then James is fighting off Donoso at the moment. You can see slightly further back. There is Danny trying to make a move coming into turn 4. At the moment, looks like everyone's done okay. Haddad and Wycombe's fighting for the last points at the moment. Lots and lots of fighting going on. Can't see any discarded carbon fibre at the moment. So far, so good. But what a cracking start from the McLaren.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, my game decided to die.
Oh, nice.
Anyway, I'm back on board, and I can see the guys going all out at it. Fairly clean start. Jan Fehler up into P2. Formula Danny, he's got to be careful for the entire race, really. Although he needs to be aggressive, really aggressive. But it's a beautiful blue sky at the moment, Kodak. I can't see any signs of rain just yet.
No, we won't do for a while, I suspect, but we will see what happens as the race progresses. Now, Tim, very much in the slipstream of Jan Fehler. He's going to have that done well before they get to turn 1. Apologies for the game freezing. That's my side. Nothing I can do about it. But now streaming on down towards turn 1. Tanitza has got a pretty healthy lead already as Tim slides back through into second position. And there is Donoso on the back of Jan Fehler. So Jan didn't get a good run through 1, 2 and 3. Under pressure from the Force India. They're still called Force India because remember this is 2018. We'll call them Racing Point next time around. And through then into third. So from what was a great start for Jan Fehler, now down into 4th. There is the view from James right behind. Then every car down to non-runner is within a second of the one in front. And what has happened to Amos? He's fallen through the field. He's now down at the back of the field. Has he got damage on his car? Having a quick look. Looks like the elements are still there. But he seems to be struggling a bit on those super soft tyres. It's a great shame because, again, everyone seems to have gone through fairly cleanly so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. Absolutely. It's interesting how you were saying, Kodiak, in qualifying, how the tyres are seemingly quite... the difference between the duration and performance isn't as major here. And it's interesting to see that there's a very clear gap on who's on what tyres. They're all in chunks. There's no one in, so you have the top 5 on the ultra softs. You have from 6th to 10th on the ultra softs. I meant hyper soft, sorry. And then you have from 11th down to 15th on the super soft. So it's quite interesting, that statistic. And we have Jan Fehler making a little bit of a mistake. Veloci James maybe trying a move on the outside, which will then turn to the inside. Presumably that is move done. And yeah, it looks like Jan Fehler has lost, unfortunately, another position. Danny is the next driver to potentially have a look at the McLaren.
Yeah, it's a shame for Jan. It was a bit of a twitch coming out of turn 3. Too much power down too quickly. But yeah, on they go nonetheless. And Merrick is the first one to open the penalty board on lap 3. This track is very unforgiving when it comes to that sort of thing. I wouldn't be at all surprised if the entire field came away with penalties. But the race victor is almost certainly going to be decided by a penalty count, as is normally the way. Look at Preschneider right under the rear wing of Formula Danny, as well as Jan seems to be really struggling to get back into that early pace. Unless there's sustained a bit of damage that we didn't see, it's a bit of a shame that the McLaren is falling back. Now DRS is of course available to our drivers. And the slipstream DRS combination down that back straight heading towards turn 1 is pretty monumental, as the McLaren has a look on the inside of James, but was too far back realistically to make that move stick. But Danny is staying right with them. But there is a gap, a really noticeable gap between James and Donoso. It's 1.3 seconds, and that's actually the same as what Tanita has at the front. While Timp is fending off Donoso, hanging on to second, Tanita is running off into the distance. That's exactly what he needs, especially if he needs to do an extra pit stop, which, again, it all depends on how, when the rain comes. That's going to be the big decider for him, certainly. So it is playing right into the hands of David Tanita.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but now, so Tanita has to think, does he want to sort of play it fairly safe, build a gap, and then sort of relax, so to speak, and not make any mistakes or pick up unnecessary penalties? Or is he going to push right to the end? Because it is always nice to win a championship with a win, although he does know that he doesn't, as long as he finishes P7 or higher, he's got the championship wrapped up. On board with Formula Danny, he's going to have DRS now on Jan Fehler, and Jan Fehler also has DRS on James, although Danny is a little bit closer to the McLaren, so the slipstream might help him. He's closing in on Jan Fehler. I'm not sure if he's going to make a move. Whoa! He's going to try something up the inside. Late braking, although he's not able to make anything stick. Going around the outside, not quite able to make the move, but very clean by both drivers. Good job there from Jan and Formula Danny.
I thought that one was done. I didn't think Danny was actually going to commit to it, but when he did, he stayed alongside. That was brilliant.
Preschneider's going to have a look as well, pushing Danny out wide a little bit.
Elbows out from the Sauber. Wow.
Move there from the Sauber, and that's a really good move from Preschneider. Clearly not afraid to attack at any point.
Oh,
James with a penalty.
James with the next one on the board. And yeah, he doesn't have DRS either off the back of Donoso, so he's got to do all his fighting on track. Look at this train forming behind Jan at the moment. He's got a lot of work to do. Jan now the last of the Hypersoft runners. Wow, look how quickly they all come into view. All the Ultrasoft runners still very, very close together. Marek, the tail of that particular train, that is 5th down to 10th, you can see in this one shot. And this is going to be on the board with Preschneider. Then he's, I would imagine, going to fly past the McLaren, and that's not because Jan has got a problem. That's just the effect of DRS and slipstream.
Also, Donoso took Timp on the DRS, so Donoso's going to have a go at hunting down David Tanitsa, see if he can get himself a win. He's certainly been quick enough, but he hasn't managed to tie it all together when he's needed to.
Oh, and that's Jan Fehler now losing a position to Danny, nearly losing a position to Garrix. And then you've got Photon and Marek lurking in the background. Oh, and there goes Garrix on the inside of the McLaren. It would seem to be that there is a problem on the McLaren, or he's just burned the best out of the tyres. But we are on lap 6. I would expect to see the Hypersoft runners coming in either at the end of this one. I would certainly think Jan wants to get rid of those tyres as soon as he possibly can. I think he's had enough of those. or certainly within the next couple of laps, I would expect to see the Hypersoft runners come in. So that's down to 8th then from starting on the second row for the McLaren. He just manages to fend off Photon. Does Jan come in? Doesn't look like the top guys have. So will the McLaren be the first to get rid of those Hypersoft tyres? He does indeed. And he was squirming around all over the place. He was not happy with those at all. And who's that? Timp as well that's come in. So 2 of the Hypersoft runners have come in. Sinisa, Donoso and James all carrying on with their tyres. That is the battle now for second position between Donoso and James. So the Toro Rosso really closes in on the back of the Force India. Then in the background is Preschneider and Formula Danny. Marek and Photon side by side. Oh my goodness, that's a long way off of the Haas, as he's been rather shoved off the road. Then in the background you've got Haddad, Railgun, non-runner, Wycombs in short succession. Amos is a little bit behind them, as Timp has come out about 11 seconds behind them, and Jan I think did have a problem because he's another 4 seconds behind Timp, so may have been some damage to deal with there. But wow, what a lot of fighting going on. That's the view from James at the moment, working his way through the twisty section, 7 through to 11, and the dirty air is horrible through this section, as Donoso, sadly, he's a little bit renowned for getting on the penalty board, and he's done it again. Tanizza now with a 3-second lead up front.
Donoso's losing time hand over fist. I'm wondering if he's burnt the best out of those tyres. I'm almost 100% sure he's going to be coming into the pit. He's keeping right, and so is James.
All 3 of them do.
Isn't so. Yes. So it'll be interesting to see where they come back out. Hopefully, none of them will get held up, and well, at least Tanissa did a tiny bit by the Toro Rosso of James, but he seems to come out all right. Although his pit stop would have been a tiny, maybe half a second longer than he would have hoped. Kodiak.
Yeah, and Timp has gotten past 2 of them, and he's right with David Tanita. So that's the stop that Timp did is put him right on the case of Tanita. Now, again, bearing in mind, Tim pitted very early. He pitted a lap ago, along with Jan Phelan. Jan is a couple of seconds behind James and Donoso. And they're pretty close together, but they're not quite in DRS range as yet. But now Tanita doesn't have that comfortable gap that he had before the pit stops. Now Williams has obviously gotten his tyres out a little bit warmer. He's had that sight a lap with the heavy car. So Tanita's got to find that. And that looked a little bit deep coming into the twisty section for Tanita. Like we said before, this is a very punishing track as far as penalties are concerned. Expect there to be a lot of them. But up front, Preschneider still under pressure from Formula Danny for the race lead. And again, here comes the Mercedes. That's what Slipstream and DRS does. He's going to throw that on the inside of the... In fact, he's going to have that done before he even gets to the braking zone. The new race leader is going to be Formula Danny.
That's exactly what he needs to do. So if the race was to finish now, the championship would go on to the next round. Obviously, all the drivers haven't pit, so this isn't a realistic representation of where the drivers currently are. They'll go on getting themselves on the penalty board again. Unfortunately, like you said, if you're a driver prone to penalties, unfortunately, Donoso's name comes into this. This track isn't particularly good. There's certain tracks like Suzuka and stuff where it's fairly difficult to get yourself penalties because of how it is. When it's just like tarmac runoff, it's very easy to get yourself penalties. On some of the more classic racetracks, where there's grass and gravel on the outside, it tends to be a little bit easier to keep yourself off that board. But as it stands, Formula Danny is leading the race and going pretty quickly. And one advantage Tanitsa does have is he has a lot of clean air in front of him. However, Tim is very, very close by. So Tim might try and move on this back straight because Tanitsa doesn't have DRS and Tim will do.
If Tino took Tanitsa out, it might kind of help repair the rift that was rather eloquently explained to us last week from Danny, as Donoso then gets the fastest lap. He's only a couple of cars behind these two, as you can see him in the background there. 1.5 seconds between Donoso and Tim. Tim staying in DRS range of the Renault, so he's doing what he can to try and break that. Haddad, the other one, is side by side with Marek almost coming through turn 4, now down to the double right-hander of 6. Photon directly ahead of them. He's lost the... And Marek again with his name on the penalty board. That's not going well for him. But it would actually be very rare for anyone to have just a single penalty. So, well, you never know. That's the nature of the beast, and we've seen a few drivers just fall off the road, partly pushing too hard, but also the dirty air effect is just horrendous, and that's of course when you need the downforce is in that.
The air's thin enough up here anyway, let alone behind.
Voila, perfectly timed, Tim.
Interestingly, that Tim got a penalty because I must admit it didn't look like his car. It looked like he was perfectly within track limits. I must admit. So that's a little bit strange, but he may or may not get that contested. You obviously can't get any penalty you get in the race contested, although they don't necessarily always go through. Usually, as we've alluded to, if you get a penalty for track limits, it's normally pretty certain because the white lines of a track, and if you go beyond that, you're not in the track anymore. So the game's normally pretty good at giving penalties then. Was that Marek?
That was Marek.
Well, maybe he got frustrated. I'm not sure. That is another thing penalties do to you. Although he's running quite well up in P6.
He was.
That's another thing penalties do to you. You get one, and you get more and more frustrated, and you push harder and harder, and then you end up just getting so many penalties that you decide that you don't care and quit. I'm not saying that's what Marek did, but there is very much a snowball effect of getting yourself penalties, especially in a competitive environment such as this.
Absolutely. You know, we've touched on that before, where frustration leads to mistakes, leads to frustration, leads to mistakes. So, now
dear,
that one's a bit of an odd one. Who was Michael's behind?
Was that a stop-go? That's not good. That's a stop-go.
Oh, and he'll have to serve it. He's not been in.
There's nothing you can do to not to get rid of those.
No.
The stewards won't. What they can do, they can take off penalties which are there in time, but they cannot minus your race time if there's a stop-go, even if it wasn't the driver's fault. That is very unfortunate by Widecoms. I'm just wondering if there was an issue with Marek or something like that. I wasn't on board at the time.
I don't think so, because Marek was nowhere near him at the time. A served stop-go cannot be appealed. It's an unfortunate part, nature of the beast, so to speak. If you've served a stop-go, it's put you in a position of the track you shouldn't have technically been in. President had a bit of a strange moment there. So therefore, it cannot be kind of corrected by the stewards. It's just it is the way it is. Unfortunately, if you've served the stop-go, if you haven't served it and it gets added as a time penalty, then yes, it certainly can be looked at. But if you've served it, if you put yourself in if you've been put in a position that you technically shouldn't be in, then there's nothing the stewards can do. But as Larito, I think he's just been passed by Timp there, coming through the stadium. That's a pretty brave move. As Garrix has come in, he's gone on to the super soft tyres, so now the ultra soft runners are starting to come in rather when we thought they were. Right ahead we can see Railgon and Tanita swap position. Railgon yet to come in on his super soft tyres, and probably won't do for a while yet. But that was again a slipstream DRS move from the championship leader. He's back up in the position where he needs to be, but again, assuming the rain comes, and there are some clouds gathering up in the sky, but nothing too heavy at the moment. That is going to shake the order somewhat, as Marek's ghosted car has come into the pits as well. Big old gaggle of cars here. That's essentially 5th down to 11th, with Fabrizio Donoso being the tail of the field. Oh, goodness me. As Fabrizio Donoso closing in very much on Amos, who was a bit caught behind Railgun. That's going to be a switch underneath for Donoso. There he goes. He's on
nice move.
Yeah, very nice move. His tyres appear pink on the car.
Railgun's gone wide, not getting himself a penalty. I was expecting you to see him and Formula Danny got himself a penalty coming into the pits. That might get appealed if there was an issue coming into pits, and he's got held up by the Ferrari of Photon, which is a great shame, and that might have lost him at some fairly crucial positions.
Tanita, my goodness me, that's a lot of people you're trying to pass very quickly. He's now side by side with Non-Runner coming through 2 and 3, and Tim has followed him as well. Goodness me, Non-Runner getting absolutely mugged coming through the first chicane. Now streaming on down towards turn 4. Is Wycombe's going to fight them? Oh my goodness, Tunisia. He does.
Tim's going to have a look. He's going to have a good traction off the exit of 5. And maybe again off turn 6 if he's able to get a smooth transition, and he has done through the sweeping section, and he's in the dirty air, so probably not going to be able to make a move. But then so is Tunisia as well. All these drivers are on each other's gearboxes.
Is Wycombe's going to defend on the inside of turn 12 coming into the stadium? No, doesn't think about that one. He's wandered a bit wide as well. And again, Tunisia looks... He's desperate to try and get past. He doesn't need to be making these kind of risks. But, again, I wonder whether he's... Again, look at the clouds. They are really getting very dark. It's going to be a while before they start to let any water go. And already Tunisia is committing to a passing position.
But look at this. Temp is going quicker than both of them. Maybe up the middle. We're seeing a Hackett and Schumacher style manoeuvre in Spa, but not quite. And it looks like Tim has followed Tunisia through. Now, will Haddad, if they close in on him, will he help out his teammate Tunisia? I'm imagining Tunisia's pushing so hard simply because he doesn't want the pressure of Tim right behind him. Although he's obviously used to the pressure, Kodiak, it's easier without. So maybe that's why he's so desperate to just push, because obviously if there's a car between him and the next guy, then that's going to make it a little bit easier for him.
Donoso dispatched of Wycombe's quite comprehensively. Now he is on Tim's case as well. All of them within DRS range of one another. So now stream gone down towards 12 once again. Haddad surely he's going to bring his car in. He's been out there a while. He's losing a colossal amount of time on those super softs, but no, beg your pardon, I'm thinking ultra softs. No, the super soft probably got a bit more life, but he is losing time. I wonder, exactly as you say, he is kind of reducing that gap to help Tunisia. The team plays perfectly allowed, nothing wrong with it, but we've seen in the past where Haddad hasn't quite been so willing to let his teammate go. So that'll be an interesting one, as James has gone past Non-Runner. He's going to be right in between the two Red Bulls. Looks like Non-Runner went to do the defensive move, but the Toro Rosso with much fresher tyres has flown past him. Tunisia still, and Donoso is an absolute flyer now, as they're really condensing quite heavily coming into this. Oh, and the tail getting lively on the Force India. Oh, Tunisia's got it all to do. Oh, Wycombe's, what's happened to you? What's happened to you? Oh, no, he's off. That's at turns 4 and 5, I think. He's nosed it into the wall. I think he was ghosted, though. I think he's had a technical problem. I don't think that was a mistake. As James again with a penalty. Oh, it's very shame for him. He's running very strong in 5th. Yeah, I think Wycombe's has maybe had a screen freeze or a wheel failure or something, but he's nosed into the wall and stayed there for a while. So a great shame. So running pretty well up there in 6th, I think it was, 6th or 7th. So that's down towards the tail, and oh dear, that's another penalty for Wycombe's. I think we may see him pit and retire.
Didn't he?
Oh, there's another one.
Oh, I thought he had retired. I thought it was the AI driving. It obviously isn't.
No, that's him.
No,
I think he's bringing.
No, it's only because I saw his car ghosted, so I assumed it was the AI.
Yeah, that's the end of his day.
Oh my gosh, look how close Donoso is to Tim. I mean, he's right on the gearbox of the Williams. DRS wide open. Is he going to try and move? He isn't. That's risky braking right behind the Williams, but it's obviously worked quite well for him. Coming up towards 5 and 6, they're closing in on Haddad very, very quickly indeed. In fact, Haddad is almost driving backwards at the pace these guys are closing in on them. And they're all, and who's going to, Tunisia's got himself a penalty.
Yeah. That
puts him on level with Formula Danny, although most of the drivers have a penalty, so it's not a massive surprise. But will Haddad pit before they have a chance to close in, or will he help his teammates? We will find out very shortly.
Yeah, Haddad is being absolutely homed in on at the moment, but is it a case of, or Haddad's running his own race and he's just trying to preserve his tyres? We don't know, of course, as we saw Railgun in a massive pack of very, very closely fighting cars, but I think that pack has dispersed. Formula Danny is on Jan Fehler's case. That's going to be that move again. There it is. That's Formula Danny up to 7th position now. Now, his tyres are much younger, and we've lost Railgun. Oh dear.
Oh, well, he was in P13 when he retired, so I'm not entirely sure. Alright, Marek's car is still under AI control. I thought he might have rejoined. If you have a spare invite, you can rejoin. Now, they are very close to the other Renault, and those clouds are looking very grey. Is there a small chance that Haddad is waiting for rain? I mean, at this point, as soon as Stanitsa, Tim and Donoso closing, cars will be closing in on Haddad and overtaking him very quickly. Although he's sort of at this point where there's no point coming into the pits in case it does rain. And if it doesn't, he's kind of thrown away a strategy, so it's not ideal. And well, he's not exactly jumping out of the way, is he? In fact, he's very much on the racing line. Surely he's not going to defend on his teammates.
We've seen it before. We've seen it before.
He has done it before. In fact, he's not making it ultra easy. Although Tim is right behind Haddad as well. Unlikely to make an overtaking move. Is Haddad going to try and slow Tim down? This will be quite interesting. Or will he try just as hard as he did on Tinitsa? Tim sort of selling a bit of a dummy to the right, going over to the left. Very late braking.
Whoa! Donoso!
Done. And oh wow, Donoso out of nowhere. Oh, a little bit of contact. But everyone is just pushing him wide, saying, "Hang on, I'm still here. You can't overtake me that easily. You're gonna have to give it another go." And Donoso's now going to try in this twisty section, which is so difficult. Haddad's lost it a little bit. Donoso on the inside. Can he keep it within track limits? Yes, he can. Great move by Fabrizio Donoso. Lost himself a ton of time. Now James, look at the radar. Knox is closing in on Haddad. He might be able to have a move down into turn 12. Not quite, but I'm pretty sure the Trirosso driver will have him down the straight.
You don't often see an overtake there, it must be said. So, but you rely on the mistake of the person you're following. It's the only way you're ever going to force a move through there. As James is definitely sizing up Daniele Haddad, and I would expect that move to be done before well before they get to the braking zone. There he goes. Tim is having a look on Tunisia. No, he's too far back for that one, but look at the sky. I wonder whether that's going to arrive sooner rather than later. Like I said earlier, last time I commentated here, the rain arrived within a few laps of the end, so no one bothered going. I think one person went on to Inters. I don't think we're going to be seeing the same. I think the rain is going to be here within the next 5 laps or so.
Yes, I mean, it is looking like that. The sky is particularly grey. There's virtually no sunlight on the track. What means the track is cooling down minute by minute, or lap by lap, so to speak. And it means when the rain does hit the track, it's going to stay on the track, and it's not just going to evaporate into some sort of nice mist. It will just stay on the track, and the drivers will be sliding about all over the place. So it will be quite important that they change tyre. Haddad on 19-lap-old super softs. They are well past their use by, but how long is he going to stick on these tyres? He could potentially come in and just put on hypersofts, and he's not going to do that, so he is probably going to wait for the rain and just hope it comes sooner rather than later. Behind him is Formula Danny running an okay race in P6, but I don't think he'll be happy with that.
He's got he's got absolutely nothing in the battery as well as Formula Danny, so I think he's been pushing like a complete madman. He's got absolutely no ERS energy left, so that is not going to help him. Yes, there's a few heavy braking zones, but we'll see if he's able to do anything about that. Tunitsa under a lot of pressure from Tim again, but again, Tunitsa will know that Tim can't really do anything about it unless he tries to force the move through the twisty section. And they come again. Everybody is just looking skywards.
Oh, not a run-up.
No.
Velocity James both getting themselves penalties. It is a difficult track, as we've said. And even though these guys have had hours and hours of practice, unfortunately, it's just so difficult. Let's see if Danny is able to do anything about Haddad. Maybe even before the DRS for the DRS zone. The DRS detection is actually here, and there's rain, Kodiak. There is rain in the last corner.
Yeah, there
so
it is.
Haddad's not completely stupid at the moment.
Danny.
On the inside. So, intermediate tyres, presumably fairly soon. And Haddad is doing okay. I remember he did get a great qualifying. So he was in what, P12, was it? So he's doing quite well at the moment in P6. So if he comes the next lap and it works, then good for him.
Yeah, but now it's going to be a time of, try it again. It's now going to be a time of when. And you can see on board with Tim, just look at the amount of left he's having to put into a right-hand bend. It doesn't look like it's raining hard, but it does look like it's getting slippery. So we are going to be seeing people pitting within the next few laps to get on to the better tyre. He's losing a lot of time. Tanizza is much more at home with the slippery conditions than Timp is. Donoso is closing in very, very quickly to the back of the Williams. It's too early yet, but don't think it's going to be too long. But it's going to be who can time it well. Like you said earlier, Hamish, if Haddad times that right, he could be in for an absolute barnstormer. But we will see. And that's Tim coming in. Surely he's got to be putting the inters on. There's no point putting slicks on now. Unless
Haddad.
Unless the rain's really
is
short.
in. And there's a little bit of spray coming off the tyres, which is an early indication that there is at least water on the track and it's staying there. It's not a case of it's raining and just evaporating off. So inters go on to the Renault.
And the Williams.
There's a very long... Oh, no, there isn't. That's just the graphics. The Renault is now coming out of pit. Now, will he be quick or not? Non-runner is on actually ultra-soft tyres. So his tyres obviously went a bit dead, and now he's trying his best to close in any lost time. But Donoso is not that far behind Tanitsa, I must admit. It's only 1.5 seconds behind the race leader. Amos
Lurito is coming through the pits, coming onto the intermediates as well. I do think they've done it a little early, but if the rain falls hard enough, you never know. They're the only guys to have come in so far to get rid of the slick tyres. We'll see what our front runners do. What does Tanitsa and Donoso do? Around the last couple of turns. No sign of them coming in yet. I reckon in the next couple of laps is when we're going to see them. Non-runners just gone past Tino. He's struggling. James is in, so he's looking to try and get the timing a bit, probably a bit more fortuitous than how Tim and Haddad did. Unless he comes out, he's not coming out on ultras, surely. Is he coming out on ultra softs?
Sure. Oh dear. That must be a bit of an error by the team. I can't believe they want to come out on ultra softs. I mean, it's not even hyper softs. Hyper softs would make more sense, but not ultra soft. Seems very strange. Although he's not aquaplaning off the track, but it's a bit odd.
Unless the rain is going to be very brief.
Well, maybe. I mean, a lot of these drivers haven't came in, Kodiak. Tunitz hasn't come in. Donoso hasn't. Danny, Schneider, Photon, Failer, Garrix, none of them have came in. And it just seems a little bit strange. I'm going to have keep on board with Haddad and see how he's performing. And it seems... he's slow, to be honest. He's not going that quick. So maybe James's tyres have just gone and he needed to change them.
Yeah, could well be. Donoso is closing in slowly but surely on Tanita for the race lead at the moment, and still they carry on. Danny's gone through. Schneider's carried on. So is Photon. What about Jan Fader, where are you? Where is he? Oh, he's had an incident in the pit lane. I was waiting for him to appear in the camera shot, and he's spun in the pit lane. Oh dear, that's he won't thank me for highlighting that. But the McLaren was facing the wrong way in the pit lane entrance. Again, that is how slippery it's getting. So I think the Inters are going to get there, but not just yet. And it is indeed Inters for the McLaren. It's going to be a case of how well can these guys keep it on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, imagine doing 10 laps on soft tyres would not be ideal at all. And I must admit, I did see James sliding all over the place. Had getting a little bit more grip. This is probably now about the crossover on lap 25-26. Seems to be where the drivers want to be pitting for the intermediate tyres. Donoso's closed in on Tanitsa by a pretty decent amount, I must admit. And Tanitsa's coming in. So is Donoso. Formula Danny is staying out, so that's interesting. He obviously knows something they don't.
Or he's just taking
although
the chance.
his tyres are quite a bit fresher, so whether that helps or not, I'm not sure. Very smooth stop though by the Renault guys, about 2.5 seconds. Donoso, in fact, Force India and Renault getting their stops done very efficiently indeed.
Who else came in? Photon and Gerrix have been through the pit as well. Most people getting rid of the slicks now. Just Danny, Preschneider, James and non-runner and the ghosted Marek to do the same. So we will see what happened. Gerrix has been in the pits a long time, unless he had damage to deal with as well. He's coming out now, so he's lost a fair amount of time. Well, Danny obviously felt comfortable enough to continue, and he's not flying off the road, so he's looking to just get the, every last element. Oh, we've lost Timp. Oh dear. Another one has fallen by the wayside. Timp has gone. That is a shame. A issue of some description has befallen the Williams, but still Tanita and Donoso are very, very close together. And now I was just about to say, actually, the DRS is still available. Now it's stopped. So I would expect, and there's Formula Danny carefully creeping his way into the pit lane. Preschneider doing the same, and you can easily expect James and non-runner to follow suit. Here comes Tanita and Donoso coming around the final turn, very, very gingerly. Where will Formula Danny appear? He'll appear behind them, but by how far?
In fact, Danny's done pretty well, considering where he was to where he is now. P3, I mean, it won't give him the championship or even let it continue, but 6 seconds behind, 7 seconds behind the leader, you know what, is a pretty damn good job from Formula Danny. So he's obviously pretty much got the strategy bang on perfect. So good job from the Mercedes driver. Whether he'll be able to close that gap, we will find out. He's got 9 laps to do it, so let's wait and see.
Indeed, and what he's basically hoping for is for Donoso and Tanita to collide. That's or for Tanita just to push the traction a little bit too much. It's not raining that hard, so as long as Tanita takes it fairly carefully, he should be able to still maintain a fairly decent rate of knots, unless it absolutely monsoons. He's not really going to be in any real danger, I'd have thought, but you never know. The rain is always a very difficult thing to kind of predict. I would imagine it's the condition that our drivers don't practice that often. So again, it's how well can they adjust. At the moment, pretty well, it would seem.
Yeah, I mean, the drivers have experience of wet races. In the European rounds, they would tend to practice a little bit more in the rain, but as soon as, we're European rounds and Suzuka, to be honest, but as soon as we come to places, usually America, it tends to be less effective. Donoso with another 3-second penalty, that puts his tally up to 9 seconds. So that's very much gifted Formula. That is if Danny gains a tenth on Donoso, because Danny also has a second, 3 seconds of penalty. So at the moment it's the net. So he needs to be within 6 seconds of Donoso, basically, to get that P2. And at the moment, in fact, he's actually losing time to the Force India driver.
He is. Formula Danny is struggling a bit in these wet conditions, but Tanita and Donoso are charging on. No issues befalling them at the moment. But Danny, most of the field actually are fairly spread out, which is, again, something very rare in this tier. We're used to kind of this, more lap on lap on lap, but as it is just the top 2 engaged in close battle. And Tenitza, I would imagine, is aware of the fact that he doesn't have to defend to any real degree from Donoso. Tenitza had a cracking exit from the final turn there. Really did put a healthy gap between himself and the Force India. Donoso spun up his rear wheels a little bit there. Yeah, it was a stunning exit from Tenitza there. Another penalty for James. You will be disqualified eventually, but at the moment he's still adding to the penalty count. And just look at the tail of the Force India. Oh, Hamish has had to depart. I think he's had a technical problem which has made him reset. He sent me a message saying be right back, so hopefully Hamish will be able to resolve whatever his problem is and return to us. Formula Danny now 8 seconds nearly behind behind the leader as Tim's ghosted car has come into the pit again. Look at just how much you can just see every corner that Donoso's taking. It's almost like he's having to put opposite lock onto the end of it to just keep the car steady. I mean, that's, again, maximum respect to our drivers. That's scoring quite a way off. For driving so well, so consistently. Yes, we've seen a number of penalties, but partly the track is just very unforgiving for that. I was going to say he's fallen out of DRS range, but that's actually completely irrelevant in the wet anyway. Around the final turn. Start of lap 37 to go. And Danny is just falling and falling and falling quite badly as well. So whatever setup Danny's running, it was not geared towards the wet. You see the fuel light just blinking there, so he's on the limit as far as fuel is concerned, so he can't push too hard. And the battery's just absolutely empty. So not a great one for Formula Danny, unfortunately. It is looking unlikely that the championship will continue. Schneider currently holding on to 4th then, 6 seconds behind Danny. And then Photon another 5 down the road in the Ferrari. This is, of course, where they currently stand. And this isn't penalty adjusted, etc. So James then working his way through the first chicane. Again, getting a big old snap of oversteer in 6th position. Then it is Daniele Haddad in 7th. He's got Gerrits in relatively short company as well. As Donoso's actually fallen a little bit off the back of Tenitza. Then it's non-runner in 9th position in the Red Bull, with Jan Fehler in 10th position. Newcomer Amos is still running there in 11th. That's a ghosted either Marek or Tim behind. So of the runners remaining, sadly Amos is the one that won't score. This is a bit of a shame. He did score in his opening round with us a few rounds ago. Garrix is starting to get close to Haddad. So that's a battle for 7th that is currently being looked at. I'm keeping an eye on the times as well. Formula Danny now 10 seconds behind the leader. Speaking of Amos Lito, there he is on the penalty board again. And the final few turns then for Haddad and Garrix. Garrix very cautious to get the power down. Well, either out of choice or necessity. He was very, very steady in the application of the right foot. But jumping up to the lead battle, there it is between Donoso and Tenitza. It is all in Tenitza's hands. Unfortunately, Hamish's issues has meant that he cannot rejoin, so it is just myself with you lovely people until the end of the race. Goodness me, Donoso is using every available inch of track and no more. But he's keeping the pressure on Tenitza though. Slows back into under a second. So again, Tenitza will know that he doesn't have to push like a complete nutter, but he will still want the win. He will still want the top honours. Now back under a second's gap. Lovely drifting action. Now you're starting to see the spray coming off the backs of the cars, so that rain is most certainly getting heavy. Well, whether the rain's getting heavier or whether the water is settling more, I think the rain has actually gotten heavier. So that's really going to start to play havoc with your muscle memory, the braking points you're using, the lines you're taking, etc., etc., especially in close proximity, such as Donoso is to Tenitza, and actually Gerrits is to Haddad. So both the Renaults are being pressured, one by Force India, one by Mercedes. as again Haddad had a fairly decent exit from the final turn, but not brilliant. Garrix has remained very much in striking distance as Formula Danny is continuing to struggle in the wet conditions. Actually, didn't look like his car was straight at all in that particular shot. That's, I suspect that's a ghost that they're catching up to. Who's that? It's Tim. Yeah, we lost Tim a little while ago. So nothing that our front runners have to deal with as Amos is in the pits. Oh dear. His day gets even worse. Through the stadium come our top two. Whoa, and again you could hear just how tentatively the power has to be applied by the Force India, and just look how sideways his car is. Very nicely handled. Amos going on to the full wets. Well, he's already at the tail of the field. He's got nothing to lose, I suppose. Interesting decision. That's not the race leader behind him, I don't think. Oh, it is. That is race leader Vitanita coming up behind. This is going to be interesting. A direct on-track comparison on how the full wets compare against the Inters. You can see how sideways Fabrizio is. Now, if Amos starts to run off into the distance, he's got 42 seconds to gain before he gets into the pits, into the points rather, and he's under blue flag, so he has to get out of the way of Tanita coming through. But that would have been interesting if Amos was able to actually pull away. But he's got such a colossal gap to close down before he can get into the points again that with so little time, unfortunately, I don't think it would have paid off for him. But on we go then. 3.5 laps to go, and wow, the rain is really setting. You're actually starting to see where the water is gathering. Look at that. That is really monsoon conditions now. Oh, this is going to be very interesting to see as Donoso again on the penalty board. This is going to be, you can see why Amos went for the full wets. It might actually be a necessity to do that. Whoa, Tanita, very nicely handled. Someone's played dirt too. And now that's Amos unlapping himself from Donoso. He's perfectly entitled to do that as long as he doesn't hold up Fabrizio when the move is done. Hey, you are allowed to unlap yourself as long as you do not hold up the person you are unlapping yourself from. But as you can quite clearly see, there's not enough of a pace gain in those full wets yet. But he's not falling off the back. If he jumped too early onto those full wets, then you'd imagine he would just fall by the wayside. Or he even had to probably brake earlier than he was expecting because Donoso is really struggling. Garrix has come in. I bet you he's doing the same. I wonder whether people are going to feel they have to pit non-runners in as well. We are seeing people coming onto the full wets. The Inters aren't doing it anymore. Well, that's going to help Amos somewhat. You see how tentative they're having to be, but Amos, I think, is having to hold back because Donoso cannot get the power down. There's no traction out there for him. Through into the stadium again, and Amos had to bail on that. And he may well have just gone a bit deep. I think he just had to bail just because Donoso's struggling. So non-runner and Garrix on the full wets. Will our top two do the same? I reckon they're going to just string it out. Oh, Pracenator, that's rare to see him on the penalty board. And indeed, Tanita and Donoso have continued. It's a big old handful of slipstream. Of course, DRS was disabled quite a number of laps ago. There goes Amos on the inside of the, and he's backed out of it again. He may feel, that's necessary because again he would be under blue flags again. But I think it's fair to say he's really piling the pressure on the Force India at the moment. Who's that ahead of? Oh, that's a ghosted Marek that's directly ahead of Tanita. But it's times like this, with less than 2 laps to go, that is really going to test just one mistake, and that could throw Tanita into the wall. Danny is still, as you can see, he's 11 seconds off the back of Tanita, 9 off the back of Donoso. Donoso, we know, has got a pretty big penalty count at the moment. But if Tanita throws it into the wall in the dying stage of the race, Danny could well still be in with a chance. It would have to take something like that for Formula Danny to be brought back into it, though, and you can just see how much he's tiptoeing around the puddles to just keep the car on the straight and narrow. But here they come then. And look at the gap that, I mean, Amos has destroyed that gap between himself and non-runner. Or was previously with Jan Fehler, admittedly. Here we go then, final lap here in Mexico. David Tanita then streaming through 3 seconds to the good over the Force India. And that's where Amos is. That's the other house that we were seeing. Even though the other house, which is Marek, is a ghost, he still felt the need to be evasive when they came through. So there you go. Amos did indeed unlap himself on the Force India, and I bet you he absolutely flies with the additional water clearing abilities of those tyres. Absolutely tiptoeing through. Well, fuel is not really going to be too much of a problem for our drivers. Through turn 6. There in the background, just saw Donoso. And Tim's ghost is now at the tail of the field. Through the twisties for the final time for Tanita. I think it's fair to say, unless he throws it into the wall in the stadium, that this championship is going to be his. Now another penalty on the ball, but that's fairly academic with the gap that he's got. Through 14, 15, 16 and 17. And there it is, your winner and your season 16 champion for PCF1. Wow, that was an amazing wiggle there for the Italian of David Tanita. Donoso crosses the line in second. But with his penalties, obviously gives him a pretty colossal gap. Here comes Formula Danny, and who does indeed take that second spot due to penalties. Preschneider is going to cross the line in 4th position. Photon, a decent effort for him, as he has a ghosted Tim right ahead of him. There is 5th for the Ferrari. Here comes James. Big old wiggle for him. Just cross the line in 6th. Here comes Haddad, the second of the Renaults. Where will he slot in due to the penalties? Does he increase? Yes, he does. That's up to 6th. Garrick's on the full wets. I bet you he's been the fastest man out there for the last few laps. Even he still gets a big wiggle on coming through the final turn. Jan Fehler in the McLaren. Oh, what might have been. I think he jumped up to 8th in the end. But we'll see. As Wycombe's pretty quick to lead the session. Well, what can I say? A champion is crowned, and well deserved. It was such a strong championship for David Tanita. Danny coming into the championship a little bit later. Well, he technically started it with the rest, but of course with the rounds that he wasn't able to attend has meant that the championship is sealed up. Oh, what might have been if Formula Danny was with us. But there it is. Donoso taking the 3rd spot on the podium. Excellent job. Well done to our drivers. Well done to the Renault pair of Tanita and Haddad. So, as a confirmation then, there it is. Tanita 1, Danny 2, Donoso 3, Preschneider 4, Photon 5, Haddad 6, James 7, Fehler 8. Fehler was indeed elevated up to 8th position. Garrick's 9. Non-runner rounds out your points paying positions. Amos, unfortunately, was not able to hang on to the points payers. So 11th, and then we lost Tim, Marek, Railgon and Wycombs in the race. Only 3 drivers without a penalty. All credit to them. Who wants to talk to me? I suspect this is going to be quite an interesting one. We have Formula Danny, Fabrizio Donoso and Jan Fehler. So we'll grab them into the box shortly. Bear with me just a second. Whilst we get the good old interview music going. Right, let's get them in. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for taking the time to come and talk to me. Firstly, let's have a chat with the coordinator of this league, Mr. Fehler. We don't get a chance to talk to you too often. Hello, Jan. How are you
Hello.
feeling?
A bit disappointed and tired.
Oh, what might have been was essentially the summary when I said when you crossed the line. I mean, such a strong qualifying. What went wrong?
I was a bit afraid of getting penalties in this race, so I thought before the race, okay, getting penalty free through the race could gain me a few positions in the end. And I'm afraid I was focusing a bit too much on that, so I didn't really get into a rhythm on the Hypersoft stint at the start. And then, after pitting onto Supersofts, my DRS got stuck open. And the problem is that you can't really, do the S section on that track with an open DRS and just start sliding everywhere, and that absolutely grills the tires. And that caused me to pit too early onto Inters because the Supersofts were absolutely dead by then already. I think I spun on the pit entry as well. And and I lost a bit of time there as well, of course, going too early onto Inters. And I mean, I did gain a position because of penalties in the end, because I think Garrick's got 2 penalties and I didn't. But obviously after qualifying in P3, that was not what I was aiming to finish in the start.
A valiant effort nonetheless, and only a few rounds left. Looking forward to the last 2.
Oh well, definitely. Next week Brazil is absolutely my favorite track, so I'm really looking forward to that. And then Abu Dhabi, well, we'll get it over with, right? Hoping to see some nice filled grids in the next 2 weeks as well, and then shall have a good end to the season.
Thank you very much, Jan. Mr. Preschneider, thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Hello. How are you feeling after that one?
Well, actually pretty good. Before the race, when I looked at the weather prediction, I saw that there should be a rain going into the end of the race. And you probably know that in the last 2 races, not last 2 races, but in Hungary and Russia, I think, I started on the softest tire, and well, this exact same weather scenario kind of ruined my race, so I tried to go for something different and changed the setup a little bit to suit it to the wet. And well, qualifying was kind of surprising since I haven't done a lot of practice on the ultra soft tire, but it was P7, and then in the race I could keep up with Danny. So I felt really good about my pace, although I was being a little bit cautious since I had 2 warnings, and then I just got held in the pits for no reason and lost like 3 seconds to Danny. I don't really know why. But I'm really happy with the result. P4 is good, and it's a good point for the team as well. And I would like to also congratulate David Tonica on winning the championship. He and Danny were really the people to beat this season, and both of them are really quick, and I have huge respect for them.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much, Mr. Preschneider. Mr. Donoso. Hello, Fabrizio.
Good evening, guys.
You strung those soft tires longer than I thought you would. That looked quite lively before you brought that one in. How was that race for you?
Well, felt pretty good. A bit disappointed with the result, to be honest. I was struggling quite a lot with the people to overtake, as we were in different strategy with Dino and Tonizza. I knew that it was going to be tricky to overtake. Didn't like some moves out there, but it is what it is. Tonizza did a great job. Tino, I don't know what happened to Tino. I think he pitted too early. And I was struggling quite a lot on the rain, taking too much penalties. To be honest, I didn't train the wet. And congrats to Tonizza who won the championship, and to Danny who did a cleaner race than me.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Fabrizio. Hello, Danny. You gave it your all. It looked like you struggled somewhat in the wet conditions.
Yeah, I think I use a bit different setups than the others, and I of course won't sell, which is the different part of it, but it is very good for me in the dry, but I lost a lot of time because of it in the wet, and at the end when I saw that I need to gain like 1 and 2 seconds per lap to have a chance for the victory, I didn't even try that hard. I just wanted to make it clean and finish ahead of Preisneider. I asked Jeff and he told that Fab has a lot of penalties, so of course I tried to somewhat stay in the rage, but he was fast, but lucky me, he got more than expected and I could finish second like that, but yes, at the end I wasn't there at space. I also chose to go with an alternative strategy because on my race director I felt that the race would come a bit later, like 5 or 6 laps, but yes, I misjudged the weather and its aggressiveness or its intensity. But all in all, I had amazing fights with Failer, very clean fights with Preisneider, so I really want to thank them for that because they made my race a very interesting one, a very eventful one, at least the first part. So I am happy for the podium finish. I also want to congratulate David Tonizza for the championship because although I missed a lot of races, I think like 6 or something like that, when I was here, he also made clear that he works very hard and he pushes at an amazing pace, and he got a lot of victory and he deserves this one too. So he is a true and well-deserved champion in season 15 of AOR by quite a lot of points.
Season 16.
But what did I say? 16?
You said
It is season 16.
Okay, sorry. So well done for him. And yes, that was quite a long speech, so I stop here.
And speaking of our new champion, what a way to make your AOR debut this season. It is David Tonizza. You must be quite happy with that. You've been absolutely untouchable.
Well, what a way to win the championship, isn't it? Well, talking about the race, it was just great. I've done the perfect strategy since the start, and I managed to keep the pace during all the race. And talking about the championship, then it's a huge relief because there's a lot of stress in this kind of competition, you know. So I'm really happy of my performance during the year, of my growth. And I'm obviously looking forward to the next 2 races. And I want to thank all the guys who supported me and wished me the best.
Yeah, a worthy champion. You've demonstrated some incredible pace and consistency. It's very rare that we saw you not towards the sharper end, and we really look forward to not only the final 2 races but seasons to come. So thank you very much for that. And that is going to be it for this evening. Thank you very much to those of you that have been with us throughout this evening's race. A great pleasure to have you with us. Thank you to our drivers for putting on an incredible show once again. Thank you to our sponsors for your continued support. Without you guys, AOR would not continue to grow. And that is going to be it. Come to us next week for round 20. It is Interlagos, but there's plenty of racing to be had in between. So until then, thank you very much and good night.